All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive today. We're diving into the world of Cen-ProjekT, and if you're not familiar, that's Chris Angle's musical project.
Right.
We're specifically going deep on his new album, Dawnbreak.
Okay.
And to help us out, we've got two reviews here.
All right.
One from MyProc Music and the other one from ProgCritique.
Very cool.
These reviewers, they were just throwing around comparisons to all these big prog rock bands.
Yeah. Like who?
Genesis, yes. Jethro Tull, even a little bit of Pink Floyd.
Wow. Those are some pretty big names to be compared to.
Yeah, so I'm already intrigued.
Definitely.
And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
This is Chris's third release this year.
Oh, wow. He's been busy.
3 albums in 2024. That's pretty impressive.
Really prolific.
So I guess before we get into all the individual tracks,
Yeah.
what's the overall vibe of the album, based on these reviews?
Well, they both seem to agree that Chris is kind of taking Cen-ProjekT in a more symphonic direction this time.
Yeah.
They're calling it like a concept album, dealing with these big themes.
Like what kind of theme?
Things like mortality and inner strength and, like the search for meaning and all that.
Oh, a concept album?
Yeah,
That's always exciting.
definitely.
But, symphonic prog.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, you got to think back to like the 70s.
Okay.
The golden age of prog, bands like Genesis, yes, that kind of thing.
Right.
Symphonic prog rock. It's all about that grandeur, drawing inspiration from classical music, using really elaborate arrangements, complex time signatures.
Okay.
It's really about creating this like big orchestral sound.
So we're talking big, sweeping melodies,
Yeah.
dramatic transitions,
Exactly.
maybe even a little operatic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And both reviewers are saying that while Chris is drawing from those classic influences, he's still making something that sounds fresh.
Yeah, that's the key.
Well, I got to know how he's doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of classic influences, the MyProc Music review,
Yeah.
they mentioned a John Lord-esque keyboard intro on the opening track,
Oh, wow.
which is called Aging's Burden, a heavy theme.
Heavy.
And whenever someone mentions John Lord, from Deep Purple,
Yeah, legendary.
things are going to get epic. So what'd you think about that?
Well, that comparison, I mean, that's high praise, right?
Definitely.
Suggests a lot of virtuosity and
Yeah.
that willingness to just go for those Hammond organ sounds like Deep Purple did.
Right.
It's interesting, too, because this album is all about these heavy themes, like we said.
Mm-hmm.
And Aging's Burden, that title, it dives right in.
Yeah, for sure.
But both reviewers say that even with those themes, the music itself doesn't feel dark or depressing.
Oh, interesting.
So like existential pondering,
Yeah.
but set to soaring symphonic prog.
What a combination.
Right. And the reviewer from ProgCritique, they even joked.
Oh, yeah.
They said the eternity is long, especially towards the end.
That's a great line.
It's about a track that deals with time, passing.
Yeah, it sounds like they're finding the humor in all this.
Totally. They're appreciating it.
So it's dealing with these big topics,
Yeah,
but with a sense of humor.
for sure.
Okay, so we got a concept album.
Uh-huh.
We got symphonic influences, a little humor, and like a hopeful undercurrent.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I'm very intrigued.
Me too.
All right, so let's get into the tracks.
Okay.
What's first?
Well, both of the reviewers, they highlighted Journey Through Twilight.
Okay.
MyProc Music, they really loved this one.
Yeah. What do they say?
That talked about an oriental flavor
Oh,
and a killer Floydian guitar solo.
oh, that catches my ear, that oriental flavor.
Yeah.
I know these comparisons can be subjective,
Oh, definitely.
but what would even give a track that kind of flavor?
Well, you're right. It's subjective. But it often comes down to the scales and the melodies used, maybe some instrumentation, All right. like using a sitar or koto, maybe, and just a sonic aesthetic that kind of evokes Eastern music.
So it's more than just like throwing in a gong or some wind chimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be the whole soundscape.
Right.
And then that killer Floydian solo. I mean, you can just imagine it. Like
Yeah.
those soaring psychedelic leads,
Yeah.
maybe some spacey atmospheric effects.
Very David Gilmour.
Yeah, melodic and bluesy and otherworldly all at the same time.
I can already picture it.
It's awesome.
So Journey Through Twilight, it's
Yeah.
Eastern influences
Mm-hmm.
and a Pink Floyd-style guitar solo.
That's what they're hearing.
That's quite a journey.
Right.
What about prog critique? What did they think?
But this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They actually heard some Saga influences in this one.
Saga.
Yeah, you know the Canadian prog band?
Okay.
They do that rock synth pop kind of blend.
Right.
Might seem like a strange comparison.
Yeah.
But it really shows you how subjective music can be.
Very true.
What one person hears as one thing, another person hears totally differently.
Absolutely.
It's all in the ear of the beholder, right?
Yeah, and that's what's so great about music.
For sure.
All right, so what's next?
Well, let's move on to a totally different track.
Okay.
This one's called In the Realm of Eternal.
In the Realm of Eternal.
Yeah, and my proc music, they said this one has moments that almost feel like liturgical music.
Liturgical music.
Yeah.
What do they even mean by that?
Well, you know, liturgical music, it's traditionally used in religious services.
Right.
It's very solemn, reverent.
Yeah, I get that.
That has that spiritual quality to it.
Yeah.
The reviewer, Jacques, he didn't go into detail about what exactly made him think of that, but it's a really interesting comparison, right?
It is. It really is.
How do you even do that? You know,
Yeah.
take a prog rock track and make it sound liturgical.
Yeah, was there anything specific that they mentioned?
Well, he did compare a keyboard part in this track to Keith Emerson, you know, from Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yeah, of course.
He was known for that flamboyant style, that mastery of the Hammond organ, the Moog synthesizer,
Yeah.
even the church organ. So maybe that's where that connection comes in.
Keith Emerson, that's a big name in Prague.
Definitely.
So we got liturgical vibes.
Yeah.
A little bit of Keith Emerson.
Yeah, it's a wild mix.
I'm really curious about this one now.
Me too. It's like Chris is really stretching the boundaries of prog with this album.
Yeah, it really seems like it.
And speaking of stretching boundaries,
Okay.
the next track, Labyrinth of Dreams, this one caused a bit of a debate between the two reviewers.
Ooh, a debate.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what they had to say.
Tell me all about it. So, Labyrinth of Dreams caused a debate.
Yeah, Jacques, over at My Proc Music, he had like a transformative experience listening to this one.
Wait.
He said it took him right back to the early days of Genesis,
Wow.
like the Peter Gabriel era.
Okay, so we're talking like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway,
Yeah.
Foxtrot, that era.
Exactly, those albums.
Those are prog classics.
Yeah, that era of Genesis, it was all about that theatrical flair,
Right.
intricate storytelling, and like a mystical kind of whimsical quality.
I can see why that comparison would be exciting, but maybe a little intimidating, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a big claim.
Yeah.
And Pierre from Prog Critique, he didn't quite agree.
Okay, what did he think?
He compared it to Kansas.
Kansas, okay.
Yeah, another prog giant, but a different vibe, you know?
Right, they're known for those violin melodies
Yeah.
and a little more of a hard rock edge.
Yeah, exactly. So two very different takes.
It really shows how subjective music can be.
Totally.
What do you make of that difference?
Well, I think it just shows how rich and complex Chris's music is.
Okay.
Labyrinth of Dreams, it obviously evokes a lot of different emotions.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the arrangements or the lyrics, I don't know.
Hmm.
But people are connecting with it in really personal ways.
Like a musical Rorschach test almost.
Kinda, yeah, reflecting back our own experiences.
Yeah, it reminds me of this one time, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Just listening to this song, and it just took me right back to high school.
Wow.
It's like all those memories and emotions just flooding back.
It's amazing how music can do that.
It really is.
Just a single song can unlock all that.
Absolutely powerful stuff.
For sure.
All right, so back to Dawnbreak.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, there's one track where both reviewers agreed.
Okay.
Feel the Light.
Okay, Feel the Light.
Yeah, they both got some serious Yes vibes from this one.
Yes.
Especially the vocal harmonies.
Yes, masters of vocal harmony.
Oh, absolutely. Those layered, soaring vocals.
I love it. Did they say which era of Yes it reminded them of?
Pierre from Prog Critique, he specifically mentioned the Time in a Word era.
Okay, so for those who aren't familiar,
Yeah.
that's when Yes started experimenting with more orchestral arrangements, right?
Kind of softer, more melodic
Okay.
compared to their earlier stuff.
So lush instrumentation, complex harmonies, that classic Yes
Sound, exactly. Grand, majestic, you know.
Yeah, always pushing the boundaries.
Absolutely.
And this brings us to another track with some interesting comparisons.
Yeah, Eleanor.
Eleanor. Okay, what's the story with this one?
Well, get ready for this. Eleanor got compared to both Genesis and Anthony Phillips.
Whoa, hold on.
Double whammy.
Anthony Phillips, founding member of Genesis.
Yeah, and a successful solo artist.
Right. How does one track even do that?
It's wild, right?
Embody both Genesis and Anthony Phillips.
The reviewers didn't go into detail about the specifics, but we can speculate a bit.
Okay.
Genesis, especially early Genesis, they had those pastoral kind of folky parts.
Right.
Lots of 12-string guitar.
Yeah.
A melancholy beauty.
And then Anthony Phillips' solo stuff.
Yeah, it has those elements too, but it's more introspective, more atmospheric.
Right, so maybe Eleanor kind of blends those two worlds together.
Yeah, maybe it's got that grandeur of Genesis. Okay.
But also that intimacy of Phillips.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating combo.
It is. So with all these comparisons to these prog legends, is there anything on Dawnbreak that sounds uniquely like Chris,
Well, Pierre said that the title track, Dawnbreak, that's where Chris goes back to his classic style.
His classic style.
Yeah, but he didn't say what that means.
So it's a mystery.
A bit of a mystery, yeah.
Okay, we'll have to listen closely to Dawnbreak and see if we can figure it out.
Exactly. Put on your detective hats.
What about the rest of the tracks? Any more surprises?
Well, we can't forget about Q, the instrumental track.
Okay.
It's a bit unusual for Cen-ProjekT.
How so?
Well, Jacques from My Proc Music, he loved the rustic flute on this one.
Rustic flute. That's a new one.
Right. It's not your typical prog instrument.
What do you think they mean by rustic?
I'm imagining like an earthy flute sound.
Okay.
Maybe a little rough around the edges. Not that polished classical sound.
So like a folk music vibe. Maybe, yeah, something with that rustic charm.
So even in the instrumental stuff, Chris is experimenting.
Yeah, he's not afraid to try new things.
That's great.
And to wrap things up, we have the closer, Neverland's Child.
Neverland's Child, okay.
Pierre described it as a burst of youthful energy.
Fitting for a Peter Pan theme.
Right. It's all about that sense of wonder and possibility.
So we're ending on a high note.
Yeah, a burst of energy and optimism.
After going through some pretty heavy themes.
It's quite an emotional roller coaster, this album.
It sounds like it.
That's what makes it so compelling, I think.
Yeah.
Exploring the full spectrum of human experience.
From the depths of existentialism to pure joy.
Exactly. It's all there.
Okay, so we've covered a lot.
We have.
Concept album, symphonic influences, comparisons to all these prog legends, even a little bit of liturgical and rustic stuff.
It's a lot to take in.
So what's the big takeaway? What makes Dawnbreak stand out?
I think for me, it's how Chris creates these huge symphonic sounds, but it still feels personal,
Yeah, I get that.
It's not just him showing off, look how much prog I can do.
Right.
It feels like a real honest exploration of these themes.
Yeah, it's like he's inviting us along on his journey.
Exactly. It's like a conversation.
And that's what makes the comparisons to the big prog bands so interesting.
Yeah.
He's not just copying them.
Right. He's taking what they did and doing his own thing with it.
Yeah, adding his own voice to the evolution of prog,
And that's what I love about artists like Chris. They keep pushing things forward.
Yeah, they're not stuck in the past.
They're experimenting, coming up with new ideas.
Keeping prog alive.
Exactly.
Reading these reviews, I noticed how much the reviewers got into it.
Yeah, me too.
They were talking about their own experiences, using all this imagery, even cracking jokes.
It's like they were listening to the album right alongside us.
Yeah, it really shows how powerful Chris's music is.
Totally. Connects with people on a deep level.
It goes beyond just prog,
It's about the human experience.
Yeah, it's universal.
And that makes me wonder, he's released 3 albums this year.
I know, it's incredible.
Where does he even go from here?
The big question, right?
Is he going to stick with the symphonic sound?
Or is this just the beginning?
What do you think?
I mean, the reviewers loved this direction.
They did.
He's really good at blending the classic prog with a modern sound.
Yeah, it suits him.
But knowing Chris, he could do something completely different next.
True. He could go full electronic.
Or jazz fusion.
Maybe some world music.
Who knows? The possibilities are endless.
And that's what's so exciting.
You never know what he'll do next.
It's going to be an adventure.
So for you listening, if you're all curious about prog rock,
especially symphonic prog,
you got to check out Dawnbreak.
It's a must listen.
But even if you're not a huge prog fan,
there's something here for everyone.
It's about exploring, pushing boundaries, the power of music.
Chris's music, it connects us, inspires us.
Takes us on a journey.
And that's what it's all about.
So that was our deep dive into Cen-ProjekT's Dawnbreak.
Now it's your turn to listen.
Let those melodies wash over you. Think about the themes. See where it takes you.
You might discover your new favorite artist.
Or rediscover the magic of music.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening.
And keep that prog spirit alive.